pull up a chair and join us at the Energy Roundtable.
Welcome to Energy Roundtable, our first of the year 2022. And always my combatant, my discussion team member, Lisa Katz. Lisa, welcome to our first Energy Roundtable of 2022.
Thank you very much, Matt. To our listeners, if we can still say it, Happy New Year, I guess.
Yeah, right, exactly. When does that run out? Middle of the month? Anyway.
I know, that's what they say, middle of the month. So we're on the tail end. But I did see Pascal in one of our emails with clients today, wishing them a Happy New Year. So I'm copying that.
That's right. I think we're close to the Chinese New Year, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so, actually. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So let's jump in. We each have two articles. Why don't we have you go first, Lisa, and we'll go back and forth and talk about what's new in our energy space.
Sure. No, that sounds good. It's been a little while so I feel a little rusty, actually. But this one is from the Toronto Star. It was in the food section, of course, the Toronto Star, although my second one is not from it. And it's titled Getting Real About Fake Meat. And its subtitle is Ditching Beef for Plant-Based Burgers Might Not Be the Best Way to Save the Planet. And so it's really talking about this trend and the fact that Bill Gates and Leonardo DiCaprio, they've invested heavily in two of the biggest plant-based meat substitute companies, which is called Impossible Foods and Beyond Meat, and how so many people are suggesting that this is the best way to reduce your carbon footprint, or I shouldn't say the best way, but one of the best ways from a food consumption perspective. And experts are suggesting that it might not actually be the best way, and that they're suggesting that food manufacturers might not be as green as they appear, and they might be cherry-picking metrics to make their marketing case. And then it goes on to indicate that they really focus on CO2 emissions and that they don't focus on some of the other pieces that build up that story. So, for example, monoculture farming, which is basically where you're taking, a specific crop like peas or soybeans, and you're planting just that crop. Are they looking at things like soil erosion or the dependence on fossil fuels because of fertilizers, or the nightmare that it can create for biodiversity? A lot of them aren't. Right. And then the article talks about Impossible Foods CEO Matt Brown. And and it's kind of interesting. He says that, the reason that they do what they do really is to reduce the environmental footprint of the food system and to make it better for everyone on the planet. And by basically looking into these metrics, it will make them less impactful because they are, quotations, wasting resources to satisfy an Excel jockey, which was quite interesting.
Funny.
And then the article sort of just kind of completes the story and hops over really to the other side of the fence by suggesting that researchers from Johns Hopkins University have found the environmental impact of plant-based meats was much lower than beef for all sustainability metrics studied, which include greenhouse gas emissions, blue water footprint, land use, pesticide use, and so on and so forth. But scientists are arguing that it's important to remember it's not always appropriate to make this comparison, and it often depends on where you are from a geographical perspective and how the whole value or food chain is put together. So I thought it was interesting, really, just for a bit of comedy in a way, but also like anything, we have to really think about the full value chain or the full, Bill, like if we're comparing this to electric vehicles, like where's the makeup of the batteries coming from, right? And what are you doing with the batteries afterwards? And like really figuring that out. I think that's going to be important as individual consumers as we continue to move forward in this energy transition, and we're making those personal decisions on what to do with our energy.
Right. Yeah, and icons of my youth, Leonardo DiCaprio and
Titanic, yeah.
Perhaps Titanic and Windows 95 in the case of Bill Gates. So obviously want to support what they're doing, but it's great to, have this discussion around how we've used this expression before. How broad is the control volume, right? Like how wide are you considering, this discussion? And it's always good to bring a counter position to the table. So that's a good thought that, and it gets into agriculture and the impacts in agriculture. And as everybody knows, I'm a big animal fan, and particularly on my plate, or on my plate. And so this article seems to support that approach to eating. And for those who know the shtick here, we have a face-off at the end, and that comment about animals on my plate may come back to haunt me later, but stay tuned for that. So awesome, great article. I will jump into my first, which is from Power Engineering, which is power-eng.com is the website. The title is Small Modular Reactor Tech Could Renew Interest in Nuclear Power. So a lot of big, I won't kind of get into too much detail, but a lot of good information here. Quotes from the Tennessee Valley Authority, which is a big power generator and utility in America. They carry a lot of weight. Believe the Secretary of Energy is quoted in here, talking about Biden's new infrastructure plan has $2.5 billion for advanced reactor research and development. Looking for small modular reactors, like down to even looks like a megawatt and a half. That this is something, if we can figure this out, it doesn't get as much airplay as certainly, I think not as much as renewable natural gas, and definitely not as much as hydrogen. But it's something that, is an exciting fit. And for those of us who are used to the molecule space, and making high quality energy in remote areas, potentially small modular reactors, it's good to see they're continuing to get support and continuing to come into the news. So I have my kind of cynicism or concerns about permitting and development, and are you permitting the design, are you permitting the site, so you have to permit it every time? There's some challenges, and we've had some podcast guests that have addressed that, but we're going to need a basket of technologies, and I think SMR is one of them.
Yeah, and isn't it, it's Bruce, isn't it, that's going to be installing the first SMR in Ontario?
No,
isn't it?
Darlington.
Oh, is it Darlington? Okay. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there, especially as it relates to permitting. And actually just sort of fits in nicely with my next article that also has to do with nuclear. So it is from the Metro News. It's dated January the 25th, and it's titled Senate Passes Bill That Would Repeal Ban on Nuclear Energy Production. And it essentially is talking about West Virginia's Senate, who overwhelmingly passed a bill that would repeal a ban on nuclear energy production in the state. The ban originally, from what I can see, took place originally in 1996. And then the article really is just sort of a mix of different opinions from various senators, and there's some kind of opposition to it, and then there's some people who are really not necessarily for it, but it talks about the fact that this could be a national security issue for some as it relates to radioactive material. Other people are a little bit less concerned because there's so much regulation already around construction and the building and operations of these nuclear facilities worldwide that it's not like the Wild West out there. And then one of the senators indicates that even he strongly supports their coal industry and natural gas industry, but he thinks they've got to be open to supporting every form of power in West Virginia. So then it led me to look up some statistics, because how I like to look into these articles a little bit in a little more detail. So I went to the EIA, which is the U.S. Energy Information Administration. And I just wanted to see, I knew that West Virginia was already coal dominated from a power perspective, but I wanted to kind of understand how much of it. So here's some interesting facts. West Virginia ranked 5th among the states in total energy production in 2019, accounting for 5% of the nation's total. Okay, whatever. In 2020, West Virginia was the second largest coal producer in the nation after Wyoming, and accounted for 13% of the U.S. total coal production. West Virginia also had 12% of recoverable coal reserves at producing mines, the third largest reserve base in the nation after Wyoming and Illinois. And in 2020, coal-fired electric power plants accounted for, here's the big one, 88% of West Virginia's electricity net generation. Renewable energy resources, primarily hydroelectric power and wind energy, contributed to almost 6%, and natural gas provided more than 3%. And then when I look at the 2019 consumption estimates that that they also have on their website, this is in trillion BTU. So of coal, consumption estimates in 2019 were just over 600 trillion BTU. Natural gas was about, I'm taking a bit of a guess here at the number, but let's call it 225 trillion BTU. Motor gasoline, excluding ethanol, was like, we'll call it 100, and about the same for distillate fuel oil. So it was interesting for me just to kind of see that. Again, I knew that it was predominantly coal-fired, but I think by repealing the ban, they are on the right track to at least cleaner energy, which is a good thing, regardless of whether it goes nuclear or it goes in some other direction. And maybe that's a mix of it.
I think the important question is, what do the truckers of Canada think about this ban? You quoted a lot of people. I'm curious what the Canadian truckers think. No, all joking aside, it reminded me, as you know, I like to go to my bookshelf. It reminded me of a book that I read called Coal Wars. You can tell by the sticker on it, it did not sell very well because it was $4. But it's a great history lesson of kind of coal in what it starts in the coal industry in West Virginia, then it moves to China, and then it comes back to kind of South Dakota, and then it looks at kind of these three areas that are driven by coal and how they have changed. And great history lesson for anybody who's interested. The author is Richard Martin. But yeah, it's an interesting discussion. We'll see. So the ban is it's a repeal of a ban of new nuclear development. Is that what the thinking is?
Well, I'm guessing so. I mean, the original ban was in 1996, so it's a repeal on, I guess, that original ban.
Right.
And obviously, they're considering putting nuclear in, but you have all these different kind of opinions, and whether they stick with nuclear or they go to other technologies. In some ways, I'll say I don't really care, except for the fact that they're cleaning it up, which is great, right? Like, I think if they go to something that's a little more sustainable long term, I think that's great for the state and for North America in general.
Cool. Well, I made a joke about the truckers of Canada. For American listeners, look it up. Apparently, our Prime Minister is having a big party, and he has invited all of our nation's truckers, and they're all making their way to Ottawa to join the party. So this article might be of interest to those in the trucking space. The headline, and it's from one of the people I refer to often, smartenergydecisions.com. The article headline is GM takes electrification beyond vehicles with fuel cells. And so GM is, they obviously offer, for light duty vehicles, they have an electric, version, but they also are working on a couple hydrogen fuel cell technology brands. One is Hydrotech, which is the brand that they're developing for heavy duty trucks, aerospace, locomotives, things that, are big users and big power users. And as a new driver of a pickup truck, I'm excited that one day I'll move off of gas and onto fuel cells and not have to give up my pickup truck. But they have taken this brand and moved it now to power gen. And so they're working with a couple folks to come up with mobile power gen applications, even to provide fast charging for EVs. So sometimes, depending on who you follow on Facebook, you may see pictures where there's an EV that's charging, and then there's like a diesel generator beside it, and that's a joke. But that's what this is. It's going to be a mobile power generator based on the GM fuel cell platform that will then provide additional EV capacity for particularly for remote areas. So kind of a cool piece. So they're kind of rolling that out through some different partners, but looking for a real market around fuel cells. And so this gets back to EVs. Yeah, are they the future? Yeah, there's a big part for EVs, but this fuel cell technology and the hydrogen economy around that, there's definitely applications for that as well. So very exciting, movement forward. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be interesting to see if they deploy some of those at their own facilities, actually, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So, cool. That's awesome.
Cool. Well, that's catching us up to what's been happening in news in our space. Now let's get to the main event, and we will bring our content producer extraordinaire, Mark Charbonneau, to facilitate our face-off. Mark, you're having a great hair day, man.
I know it's getting a little wild, isn't it?
So jealous. I'm going for a haircut tomorrow, so I'll look different next week. I'll look more presentable next week. But
yeah,
you look great. Can you tell our viewers and our listeners what's you're about to fall down? What's behind you? What's behind you?
That is a CHP project that we did back about a year ago, last winter, 2 winters ago. I can't even keep track anymore because of COVID. It was 2 winters ago.
Last winter. Hold on, maybe it was 2 winters ago now.
Yeah,
COVID has screwed me up with the timing. Yeah. But I think it might be two. Yeah, it's 2 winters ago, I think.
Yeah. I believe so. And so it's a CHP project we completed, and it's a beautiful looking unit there.
Very cool.
I'll give our listeners just a little more information on it, because I happen to know this project quite well. It's quite fond of my heart. So that is the Timmins and District Hospital, and you're looking at roughly, I'm trying to remember now, I think it's 287 kilowatts of CHP and another megawatt on two 287 kW TEDM units actually that are operating all year round as a CHP units, and then you have another megawatt which consists of two 500 kW Generac units that are operating basically, we'll call it 100 to 200 hours per year for GA or global adjustment mitigation. So some pretty significant savings. And we actually did some really good, not only did you film some good footage there, Mark, in terms of the drone footage and, the rest of the interviews and everything else we captured, but some great content we can find on YouTube on that project for those of you that are interested.
Yeah, maybe I'll link it in the description of this when we post it so that people can check it out.
Yeah.
So Faceoff, we're a couple years into this pandemic, and a lot of people working from home, acquiring all kinds of pets, getting birds, dogs, cats, fainting goats, little ponies.
Bunnies in our house.
Okay. There you go.
Oh, yeah?
When did that happen?
I did not know this.
Don't know. I went away on business and they were back in the garage.
No way.
That's not quite true. As long as anyways, let's get to the face-off. I may have to use some.
Okay. So the face-off would be pros and cons of having pets in the home. And like I said, during this pandemic, it seems everyone has something going on. So Matt, I will allow you to make the call on this coin toss. So go ahead.
Heads.
What would you like to?
Heads.
It is tails.
Oh.
Yeah. So that means Lisa gets to choose the pro or the con side of having pets in the home.
Well, I want to play with this a little bit. So let me give the listeners some background. So I own 2 pets. Okay. I own a cat and a dog. I love them to death. Matt, on the other hand, I know over the last 5 years that I have worked for CEM and worked for him that he does not like pets. So much so that, like if we were to bring a dog into the office, it would be like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? Like, I cannot stand this. So only for that reason, I'm going to take the cons and I will try to argue it as best as I can.
Wow.
That's amazing.
I just for this is timely. I feel like the Buffalo Bills right now.
I was just saying.
I lost the coin toss. I'm going to lose the game. I'm not going to get a chance. Go ahead, Lisa. You go ahead.
All right, I'm going to try my best. All right. So first of all, let's think of where we are. We're in the 3rd year of this pandemic, and think about everything. Matt was just talking about this. So this about the truckers and things like this, and you have all these shortages, and it's from a cost of living perspective, it's getting really expensive, right? Housing prices are going through the roof. Well, cats, dogs, pets, whatever animal you like, you choose, they're contributing significantly to that, to that bottom line that you're bringing home, because there's a ton of expenses. And, whether it's food or toys or treats or I know even of some family members that have had to bring in their dogs or cats more recently, and like we're talking about thousands of dollars of health bills. Like it's not easy, right? Like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 easy. I think that's a biggie. Huge expense. The other expense, which just adds to my point, is every single time you go away, you have to find somebody to watch the pet. So you've got to put them into a boarding kennel, and, cats don't like that. They don't want to be away from their, away from their surroundings. And, dogs might not care so much, but it's expensive. It's like, easy between $40 and $80 per day, depending on the kennel you choose. So do you think PCR tests are expensive? Just buy a pet. The other piece is the time consumption. Like, okay, I own a pet. Tonight, when I finish work, I have to bring the dog out around the block for a walk. You have to play with your pet. It's the time, to change the litter box. It's it's like all of this extra time you've got to put into them, because they're not necessarily, self-sustaining animals, unless you have a cat that decides to roam out, freely. And I mentioned it earlier, but the healthcare costs are just huge. And so, God forbid something does happen, again, huge expense. And even, unfortunately, putting an animal down costs a lot of money these days. So I'll form it all around the expense chart. And that's probably one of the biggest cons to owning a pet.
I gotta interrupt real quick. I think this is the first time I've seen Matt take notes during a roundtable. I swear, I don't remember ever seeing him take notes during a roundtable.
That's right.
For people that can't see,
this is a first. It's not a New Year's resolution. It's just totally. I wasn't aware that the price of shotgun shells had gone up to your last point. So yes, this is very hard for me, but I will do my best in the spirit of competition. So I think, I'll play on a couple of things that Lisa said. I think pets, particularly dogs, from what I understand, need a lot of activity. And so the humans that go with those dogs, they have to walk the dogs. And so it's a lifestyle that requires a lot of activity and requires, I think that's good. I think derivative of that is often you end up at a park or a dog park or whatever, and you get to meet new people. And there's a sense of community that's built around being an owner of a dog. You have a dog. Oh yeah, I've seen it. I've seen Lisa do it many times. Oh, I have a pet. It goes over my head, worse than cycling does. But it's a real thing, and community gets built around it. I think we talked about being 2.5 years, 3 years into this pandemic. And one of the things that have been the source of a lot of discussion is mental health. And mental health is very important. And I think pets, there's a lot of studies and data that can come out that prove that having a pet, is a source of mental health, or at least can help your mental health and help improvement. I think, for kids to have a pet in the home, I see it, as I mentioned, we have 2 bunnies. They're both the same gender, so they're not multiplying like rabbits do, which is a good thing. But it teaches my kids responsibility. Every week they have to clean out the rabbit cage. Every morning one of them has to feed it. They have to make sure the water didn't freeze in the garage, make sure their little brother didn't let them out, all that good stuff. So it teaches responsibility to kids and to adults alike. I think, there's a role for animals to play in protection. I think they, depending on the situation, if you need a dog that can be a guard dog, I think they can do that. And they're just so cute, right? They're just so cute. I think that's another one. So there's lots of reasons to. So I clearly came from behind as the Buffalo Bills didn't do and won here. I'll let Mark get official.
So are these guard rabbits then, or what?
Yeah. If we have an attack of carrots, we will be fine. If carrots walk, we will be fine.
I just got to say, unlike the Bills, I got to give the win to Matt for being a good sport. And it's funny, I have to confess, I was going to rig this anyways. So no matter what, my plan was to give you the pros at any cost.
Oh, really?
But it just so happened that you did actually, lose the coin toss. So I didn't have to cheat. So I feel good about that.
Wow. Well,
I literally had to mute myself at points during when he was talking, because I was just going to burst out laughing. It was just too funny for me to hear this.
Yeah. Awesome.
Wow. Well, great topic, Mark. I'm surprised you didn't bring it up earlier, knowing my affinity for animals. So, yeah, thank you for doing that, and hopefully our listeners enjoyed that. And thank you both for this. It's always fun to get together and talk about the news, have some fun together. We should be together again next week, and until then, I encourage people to get out there, check out some of these articles. We'll link them. and keep yourself informed. It's changing daily. So thank you both.
And don't forget, adopt a pet.
And have your pet spayed and neutered. Do we still say that, Bob Barker?
Yeah.
See you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.